My name is Robin. I work for Stodels Nurseries. Today we're going to speak about pruning roses. DSTV is a simple rule that you use to prune your roses. D for dead wood, S for sick wood, T for tiny wood, V for vase shape. When you look at the rose, those are the principles that you need to keep in mind pruning your rose. What you need to prune roses are the following: a set of gloves to protect your hand from the thorns, and a mask for when spraying the lime sulphur. The tools that you need to prune your roses are a pair of secateurs. They need to be sharp and they need to be clean. The loppers is the second tool that you need. Secateurs is for tiny branches and loppers are for thick branches. You need sharp loppers with sharp blades, as well as the blades need to be clean. Steady seal. It's a paste that has pink, and it's pink for a reason because it's got a fungicide in it. And the fungicide prevents any fungal infections in the wounds of the rose branches that you've pruned back.
This is your spraying can. You need to clean your spraying can before you use it and clean it after you use it.
Remember, the piping has got the old previous chemicals in it as well. So you need fresh water, fill it up and spray out the piping as well. When you adjust your spray nozzle on your lawns, you got to adjust it. If it's very windy, you got to adjust it so that the droplets are much bigger and heavier. When it's a windless day, you can adjust it so that it's much finer. This is the lime sulphur. You use this to spray onto the rose after you've pruned the rose. But make sure that there's no leaves on the rose, because it will burn your rose leaves. Koh-i-Noor is another insecticide that you can use to treat your roses with. If you don't want to use a spray, you can use Koh-i-Noor and add it to a watering can. It's systemic, so therefore you do not need to spray it onto the rose. You pour your Koh-i-Noor into your watering can and you add the correct amount of water and you water your rose. It's systemic, so therefore the roots take up the insecticide into the system of the plant and it kills off all the insects. Roses need feeding once a month throughout the whole year, even in the dormant season during autumn and winter. You get two types of fertilizers: autumn and winter fertilizer, which is a general fertilizer called bounce back, and a spring and summer flowering fertilizer and greening fertilizer, which is sudden impact or vigorosa. This is the dead wood that I'm speaking about. Cut it to the closest point where there's a healthy growth point. Tiny wood. That's wood that is insufficient and that's not going to give you any good growth. The wood is infected, there's brown spots and it's light yellow and green. That is infected, so that means it's a sick wood. You got to cut it back to the closest node where it's healthy. There's brown spots on the stem and it's coming off a big new shoot and there's no nodes on there and it's a small tiny piece of wood. The T in DSTV for tiny wood and S for DSTV, sick wood. When you cut the tiny wood out, you cut it to the closest point where there's a new healthy shoot. I'm cutting off all the leaves because when you spray with your lime sulphur, there shouldn't be any leaves on. Otherwise, it's going to burn your rose leaves. These are the new shoots that we are going to keep. That is going to make up your vase shape. I'm cutting this off because, as you can see, it's fairly crooked and the idea is to get a nice straight stem. It's had many cuts on it already. So you've got to remove it off. Otherwise, your growth won't be so nice. There we go. Now that you've cut out the D for dead wood, S for sick wood, T for tiny wood, you've got your vase shape. Now what you got to do is you got to reduce 1/3 of the height of the rose so that you can get new growth from your lower stems. I'm cutting it back to the healthiest node. Your node is important. It's got to show point outwards so that you keep the center of the rose open so that all your branches grow outwards and not inwards. Always look at the main stem, that it's clear of any wild rose growth. As you can see, there's a lot of the shoots over here that's coming out of the main stem, and it all needs to come off. So therefore you've got to cut it as close as possible to the main stem. This is the final cut of the rose. Pump your handheld pump sprayer until it builds enough pressure up, and then you set your nozzle so that it's a nice fine mist, and then you spray your rose with a lime sulphur and water mixture, and make sure that it's nice and moist. Whether it's a dormant season or whether it's the growing season, always a handful per square meter, which is 60 grams. Sprinkle it lightly over, evenly distribute the handful in that area. Never put your fertilizer against the actual stem of the rose. That can burn your roses. So make sure when you add it in the hole, just sprinkle it lightly around the rose, away from the main stem. Make sure that you water well. It's very important to water your garden thoroughly and a nice deep soak to make sure that the fertilizer doesn't burn your plants, especially your roses. Once you know what you're doing, pruning roses is fun, and the rewards of pruning your roses are massive, beautiful flowers in summer.